There is a box on the top shelf of my closet. It is the kind of box you forget is there until you reach for something else. White cardboard, soft at the corners. Inside, folded carefully, are little sweaters with pearl buttons, tiny hats with pom-poms, a pair of mittens connected by a string. The colors are still bright. The yarn still smells faintly of my mother's house. My mother sent packages like this for 21 years, from France, across an ocean, to a granddaughter who was 3 years old when we left, and a grown woman by the time the packages stopped. I did not understand why Mom sent them, not really. Not until the afternoon she asked me one question from a hospital bed. This is the story behind that question, and the answer I almost did not give her. This is Stories of Connection. I'm Miriam. Today I am not telling you about somebody else's story. Today I am telling you about me, my life, my own daughter. About the hardest conversation I ever had at my parents' kitchen table. About the distance that followed. About what my mother, Collette, did quietly and persistently for 21 years to make sure she would never be forgotten by a little girl growing up an ocean away. Some of you already know. I lost my mother 4 years ago. My father, Henry, is older now, quieter than he used to be, still reading his newspaper in the same chair. And my daughter, Emma, the granddaughter at the heart of this story, Emma is grown. This is a story I have been carrying for a long time. I want to share it with you the way you share something with one person at a kitchen table. Not as a teacher, not as a coach, just as a daughter who finally understood, 4 years too late, what her mother had been doing all along. Let me take you back. My mother, Collette, was the orchestrator of every visit Emma ever had with her grandparents. When we used to come back to France for the summer, the apartment would already be ready. The little bed made up with the sheets Mum had ironed, a bowl of strawberries on the counter, a new dress, hand-sewn for Emma's favourite doll, folded on the pillow. Mum would stand in the doorway, watching Emma's face as she found the dress. She watched Emma's face the way other people watch fireworks. She knit, she baked, she kept a small notebook in the kitchen drawer with the things Emma liked best, so she would not forget between visits. Strawberry yogurt with a spoon, not a straw. The blue cup, not the yellow one. A specific lullaby. Mum did not say "I love you" the way others say it. She said it by remembering which cup was Emma's favourite, by having the newly sewn dress ready, by keeping the notebook. My father, Henry, loved differently. He was a man of his generation. He had no idea how to express what he felt. He never said the words. He never wrote them down. He read his newspaper at the kitchen table every morning for 40 years, and he was the quiet kind. He watched my mother make coffee, clean the kitchen, and doing these little acts of service to help around the house without being asked. And the summers Emma was there, he watched Emma chase butterflies in the garden behind the house. And his face would do this small thing where his eyes got soft and he would forget about the newspaper for a minute. He held Emma the way men of his generation held babies, carefully, like she was breakable, with utter admiration. He never told her she was beautiful. He just looked at her like, of course, she was. That was my dad. That was the kind of love I grew up with on his side of the table. It was a sunny spring afternoon. Emma was 3. I had flown in for the week to tell my parents in person. I had practiced the words on the plane. I had practiced them in the taxi from the airport. I had practiced them walking and catching my breath up to the front door. We sat down at the kitchen table. The kitchen table. I want you to picture this table, because it is not just a piece of furniture in this story. This is the table where I did my homework as a little girl. The table where I drank hot cocoa after school in the winter. The table where my mother taught me to fold napkins into small triangles. The table where my father read his newspaper every single morning for 40 years. The table where we celebrated every birthday, every holiday, every Sunday breakfast. This table had held my whole life together. My mother was making coffee. My father had his newspaper open. I waited until she sat down. Then I said it. I have something to tell you. Emma and I are moving. We are moving to America, 5,000 miles away. The silence that followed pressed on my chest. My mother froze. Her hand stayed on the coffee cup. She tried to breathe. She tried so hard to breathe that I could see exactly how hard she was trying not to fall. Her eyes filled up with tears uncontrollably. Her face was saying, "I want to support you." But underneath, her whole face was saying, "Please don't do this." My father folded his newspaper, slowly, the way he always folded it on Sundays. He set it aside. His hands were shaking. I had never seen my father's hands shake. Not at his own father's funeral, not at the doctor's office, not ever. They ask the questions you ask. When? Where? For how long? Why this country? Why now? It is so far. But underneath every single question was the question they could not ask. Why are you doing this to us? Why are you doing this to her, to Emma? And then my mother said something quietly, almost to herself, almost like she did not mean to say it out loud. But she won't remember us. She meant Emma. I did not have an answer to that. I sat at the table where so many happy memories has been created, and I did not have an answer. The day I left, my mother held Emma for a long, long time. She whispered something in Emma's ear. I never found out what she whispered. I asked Emma years later, and Emma does not remember. Whatever it was, it stayed between the two of them. My father hugged me quickly, too quickly. He did not look at me. He just said, "Call when you land." That was it. That was the whole goodbye. Call when you land. I carried that sentence across the ocean. The first package arrived 3 weeks after we landed. Brown paper. French stamps in the corner. My mother's handwriting on the address label. Her handwriting was beautiful, neat, careful, almost like an old-fashioned school teacher. She had practiced it her whole life, and it never wavered. I opened the box at the kitchen counter of an apartment that did not yet feel like home. Inside there was a hand-knit sweater, Emma's favorite color. Tiny white pearl buttons, and one note written on a piece of folded cardstock. Pour ma petite Emma, for my little Emma. That was the first one. That was the first of so many. Every Easter, every Christmas, every birthday, for 21 years, my mother sent something. Sweaters in colors that matched Emma's eyes, little hats with pom-poms, mittens connected by a string so Emma would not lose them, hand-sewn dresses for Emma's dolls, stuffed animals my mother had stitched herself with embroidered names, children's books from France, the same books I had read as a little girl, the same blue covers, the same illustrations, French chocolates wrapped in tissue paper that matched the season, pastel for Easter, gold for Christmas, soft pink for spring birthdays. Animal figurines, small painted ones, that Emma collected on a shelf in her bedroom and arranged and rearranged 100 times. Each package was a bridge across the ocean. Each package said the thing my mother could not say on the phone. I am still here. I still love her. Please don't let her forget me. Emma would tear the paper open at the kitchen counter. She would shriek over the figurines. She would put on the new sweater immediately, even if it was July. She would carry the little dress to her doll, and I would stand there watching, and I would think, Mom is going to love that I am sending her this photo. I would take the photo, I would mail it back, and 6 weeks later, another package would arrive. That was the rhythm of our family for 21 years. But then I started to notice things. Mom's packages looked different. The handwriting on the address labels got a little shaky. The loops were not as round. There was a tremor in the line. The patterns of the sweaters got simpler, fewer cables, fewer color changes. Where there used to be 3 colors, now there were 2, then 1. Emma was growing up. She was 12 now. Her excitement was quieter. She still hugged the sweaters, but she did not put them on as often anymore. She would say, "Thank you, Mammy," on the phone, and then she would fold the sweater and put it in a drawer. And then one Christmas, Emma was 17 and the package did not come. My mother called to apologize. Her voice on the phone was careful. "Ma chérie, I am so sorry." My hands, they are not cooperating anymore. I could not finish the sweater in time. I will send it later, I promise. She never did. It was not about the sweater. It was never really about the sweater or the dresses. It was about what the sweater meant. My mother had spent 21 years reaching across an ocean with her hands. Her hands had been her telephone. Her hands had been her airplane. Her hands had been her way of being in the kitchen with Emma when there was no kitchen. Her hands had been the bridge, and now her hands could not reach anymore. I knew in that moment on the phone that something had ended that I did not have a name for yet. The next years kept passing, slowly, with a distance almost, a distance that felt sad. Emma grew up American. Her French faded. She still said bonjour on the phone, but the rest of the call was in English now, and my mother would do her best, and there would be small silences where the language did not reach. The video calls got shorter. The silences got longer. We talked about the weather. We talked about my mother's doctor's schedules. We talked about my father's shingles, which had been bothering him for years, and how he was suffering in silence the way Dad suffered in silence about most things. We never talked about the ache, the sadness. The ache was always there. It sat between us. None of us pointed at it. Then my mother got sick. The kind of sick where you pack a bag the same day you get the phone call. I flew back. I took a taxi straight from the airport to the hospital. She was in a room on the 4th floor. Late afternoon light, the blinds half drawn. I sat in the chair next to her bed. I held her hands. Her hands. The hands that had knitted 21 years of sweaters. The hands that had wrapped every package. The hands that had written, "Pour ma petite Emma," on every card. Her skin was so thin, so fragile, like tissue paper. I could see every vein. There were things I could not say to her, things I had kept for myself, inside, sheltered, there but not there. I'm sorry I took Emma so far away from you. I'm sorry I pretended the distance would not matter. I'm sorry I missed so many Sunday dinners. I'm sorry I did not understand what you were really doing all those years when you were reaching out the only way you knew how. I could not say them out loud. I sat there and I held her hand and I let the things stay inside me. There were things she never said either. She never told me she had been hurt. She never said she felt abandoned. She never showed resentment. My mother always showed a good face. She would smile through the harder phone calls. She would change the subject when she could feel her own voice cracking. She kept the ache to herself for 21 years because she did not want to add weight to my life. But I could feel it. I could always feel it. She had lost a daughter and a granddaughter to an ocean she could not cross. And she had tried, with her hands, to keep us close anyway. It was an impossible task. She tried it anyway. For 21 years, she tried it anyway. That afternoon, in the hospital room, with the half-drawn blinds and the late light, my mother looked at me. Her eyes were clear, clearer than they had been in days. She asked me one question. Does Emma still have the sweaters and animal figurines? I felt the room tilt. I said, "Yes, Mom, she does. She has all of them." And it was true. Every sweater was in the box on the top shelf of my closet. Every animal figurine was on the shelf in Emma's room. The bedroom Emma had grown out of, but had not let me touch. My mother smiled, really smiled, a smile that brought me back to a time when she used to hold Emma in her arms, telling her magical stories. A tear rolled down her cheek, and she did not wipe it. After a long and deep breath, she softly said, "Good, then she'll remember me." That was the answer why she had been knitting for 21 years. Mum passed 4 years ago. I sat with her question for a long time after she was gone. Does Emma still have the sweaters? I sat with the smile she gave me when I said yes. I sat with the tears she did not wipe. And one afternoon, at my own kitchen counter, 4 years later, I finally understood. Every sweater, every package, every note in that careful handwriting, every figurine, every chocolate in tissue paper, every book sent across the ocean, none of it had been about the things. Not really. Not at the deepest layer. It had been about staying alive in Emma's memory. My mother was terrified of being forgotten. She was terrified that an ocean was wider than her love. She was terrified that a little girl who left at 3 would grow up and slowly forget her grandma. And she fought that fear the only way she knew how, stitch by stitch, sweater by sweater, package by package, year after year, for 21 years. And here is what I want you to know. My mother won. Emma remembers everything. The blue sweater with the pearl buttons, the mittens on the string, the little dresses for the dolls, the figurine of the small white rabbit, the chocolates in pink tissue paper at Easter, the blue books from my own childhood. Emma can still describe the smell of the house in France. Emma still says "ma chérie" sometimes, the way her grandmother said it, with the same exact rise and fall. Collette is remembered. She is remembered as exceptional. She is not forgotten. She did the impossible thing. She crossed the ocean with her hands. And my father, Henry, I want to come back to him for a minute. I did not understand him for a long time. The quick hug, the call when you land, the way he would not look at me at the airport. I thought, when I was younger, that he did not feel things as deeply as my mother did. I was wrong. Dad felt everything. He just had no language for it. He had been raised in a generation that did not give men any words. So he watched. He watched Emma in the garden chasing butterflies. He held her with utter admiration. He sat at the kitchen table with his newspaper, and he absorbed what he could not say. Both of my parents loved across the distance the only way they could. My mother used her hands. My father used his eyes. Neither of them had the words. Both of them found a way. And here is the part I want to say to you lovingly. Maybe you are listening to this and you can think of someone in your own life who is doing what my mum did, who is reaching for you again and again, in small ways you may not even be noticing. Phone calls you have been letting go to voicemail, birthday cards you toss without really reading, a box of cookies that arrives in the mail and you eat without thanking them, a long voicemail you have never listened to all the way through. Questions about your kids that you brush past on the call because you are tired. They might not say it. They almost certainly won't say it. But underneath every one of those small reaches is a quiet fear. Please don't forget about me. Please don't let your kids forget about me. I'm still here. You do not need to move across an ocean to create distance with your parent. Distance can grow inside the same city, inside the same neighborhood. Inside the same Sunday afternoon you keep meaning to spend together and don't. And you do not need a plane ticket to close that distance. Sometimes it just takes paying attention, picking up the call, asking one more question, recording one story while they can still tell it, saying the sentence that matters out loud while the person can still hear it. This is what I have come to call emotional time blindness. Your brain tells you there is more time. It tells you the version of your parent you have right now is the version you will always have. It tells you the call can wait, the visit can wait, the question can wait. It is wrong. It has always been wrong. Distance and a fading mind do the same thing. They shorten the runway while your brain keeps insisting the runway is long. The packages my mother sent for 21 years were her way of fighting time blindness from her side of the ocean. She knew, in a way I did not yet know, how fast a child forgets. She knew, in a way I did not yet know, how fast a grandparent disappears from a granddaughter's mind when there is no kitchen to walk into. So she made herself impossible to forget. You can do the same thing on your side, before it's too late. With one more phone call, one more story recorded, one more visit, you stop postponing. This is the reason why I made a free guide. 50 questions to ask the parent or the grandparent in your life. The questions worth asking while you still can. The ones I wish I had asked Mom myself, sitting at that kitchen table, before I bought the plane ticket. The link is in the description. It is free. You can have it on your phone before you finish this video. This is stories of connection, stories about family, about time passing faster than we expect, about the questions we still have time to ask, and about the love that finds a way across any distance. I will see you next week. Until then, don't wait.